UFC Fight Night Ulberg versus Reyes is coming up in a couple weeks, and today, guys, I have the full card breakdown with timestamps if you'd like to skip to any part of the video. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with too many YouTube channels. Apologies if you could hear that super cool guy in his super cool car driving by, but we are going to be breaking down every single fight from the early prelims all the way to the main event. Again, if you'd like to skip to any part of the video, hear my thoughts on any particular fight, check out the timestamps, pinned comment, description down below. We're going to be talking about all of them, betting odds, predictions, what I think about the fight. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Let's get into the first early prelim opener. And for the first early prelim opener, we have Jonathan Micallef taking on Oban Elliott. This is a very, very fun fight. Like a lot of fights on this card are going to be, I'm really going to enjoy it. So we'll start with Jonathan Micallef over here. He is a well-rounded fighter with nice hands, good power, good speed, along with a good grappling game behind all of that. He has pretty good cardio, and he has insanely damaging kicks, okay? He's coming off of a fight against Kevin Jousset for his UFC debut after getting a win on Dana White's Contender Series. It was an extremely close fight, but I did personally give that fight to Kevin myself. Now, he did take on a good fighter in Kevin, so Jonathan is now past that part of proving that he belongs in the UFC, in my opinion, and my takeaway for him personally so far is that he has potential, but I still do need to see more. He's promising, though. He's a very promising fighter, that's for sure. I'm excited to see him in the octagon, but a fighter that he is taking on is a fighter fresh off of his first loss, that being Oban Elliott. Like I said, he's taking on Oban Elliott, and Oban is a well-rounded fighter with pretty good fight IQ. He has good speed, and he has technique in all aspects of MMA. In my opinion, he's always been a little bit underrated. He has really good leg kicks. He has really good volume. Along with all of that, the takedown defense is amazing to keep things on the feet. Now, to a lot of people's surprise, Oban is coming off of his first recent defeat against Seokyeong, and apologies for pronouncing that wrong, Seokyeong Ho, where he got completely outworked, but he toughed it out and he never quit. But he did get out grappled for the most part. Now, I don't think anybody was picking against Oban in that matchup, but prior to that, before that fight, he's been shining in the UFC with some good fights, and he's had some pretty good performances. Now, in the octagon, I've liked to see him because he is getting a ton of experience and only at 27 years old. I'm hoping that Oban can improve from the loss that he just had because he has like a ton of room to grow over the years. Like I said, he's been fighting some pretty good guys, and he's been having some great moments in the cage already. He seems to be a pretty motivated guy in general, so we'll see how he bounces back from here, and I'm excited to see him perform, guys. And I have to say, I think that I'm going to have to pick Oban Elliott in this matchup. I still am hyped about him, and he's had some pretty good performances, and we finally see him take his first defeat, so I'm going to bank on his improvement a little bit. Jonathan Micallef, I know that he said he proved that he belongs in the UFC. I'm just like not convinced yet. I think he's taken on a little bit of a step up in competition. So Oban Elliott is going to be my first pick on this card, and we do have odds for just about every single fight on this card. Oban Elliott sitting at a small favorite here at -132, and I think that's a fair line, honestly. I think it's a fair line. I think it makes sense. Most people are probably going to pick Oban Elliott, but in a little bit more of a low confidence pick. So like I said, Oban Elliott is going to be my pick for this fight. But now let's move on over to a very interesting bout, and I'm excited to talk about this one. We have Andre Petroski taking on Cam Rowston. We'll talk about Andre Petroski over here first. Andre Petroski, the breakdown for him is going to be that he is just a strong wrestler with powerful but sometimes sloppy but vastly improving hands, okay? He has good BJ, he has a good wrestling game, great wrestling defense as well. He's pretty good at pressuring, but sometimes he does end up leaving himself overextended. On the ground, this dude will make you hurt. He's grinding you with his elbows and like really solid short shots. Now, on top of that, I would also like to note that sometimes he does have issues listening to his corner. And I really hate when fighters do that, but on the other side of the coin, he has also been talking about how him and his team study tape more than on their opponents more than pretty well anybody in the UFC. He's been improving from fight to fight aside from his most recent loss, which we'll touch on, and he is always working on fighting safer with better game plans in the octagon. Now, about that recent loss that he just had, he just broke his win streak against Edmund Shabazian, which, in that fight, honestly, not much happened, and it was an okay performance. He struggled to get takedowns in that fight against Edmund Shabazian, and it clearly affected the overall performance that he had. Now, that might be something to note moving forward with Andre personally, I don't know why I said personally there, something that I'll be taking into consideration. He might be one of those guys that relies on his takedowns. And, to this point, man, at this point in his career, I'm not really too sure what to think about Andre right now, and exactly where he belongs in the UFC. He's fought some good guys. He's been improving from, like, fight to fight most of the time when we see him in that octagon, but I just didn't really like that last performance he had. But we'll have to see how he does against Cam Rowston here. He's an up-and-coming contender, but I will say perhaps in the past when I've talked about Andre Petroski, perhaps I overrated him in the sense, like, how much I was talking about and, like, how much better he's been getting. Like, realistically, only time will tell. He's out of his prime now, so yeah, maybe it's a one-off. Who knows? But anyways, like I said, he's taking on Cam Rowston, an up-and-coming contender. He's fresh off of his Contender Series win, and now entering the UFC. Cam Rowston is a city kickboxing fighter like a lot of fighters in this card, and he is a striker with decent volume and underrated power when he's in close with you. He's also pretty good at throwing some powerful shots, like kind of just out of nowhere in the octagon, like a front kick or a knee. It'll just like spring up. He has damaging shots like that. Like, he can be pretty sneaky and pretty speedy at times. He's super patient in the octagon. He has some nice swarms and is also pretty dangerous on the ground as well. Although it is important to note he's a city kickboxing guy, prefers to strike. He's in his prime, and he's being thrown up against Andre here in a step up in competition, in my opinion. He's looked really good in the win streak that he's been on so far, but he has never fought a grappler to the level of Andre, or like nearly to the level of Andre. So we're going to have some questions answered in this fight about how good Cam really is. At this point, he's shown good grappling in his career, but nothing like where we can say like how he's going to match up here. On the feet though, he should be able to contend. He's training with some really good guys over there at City Kickboxing, and he is like one of those like proper prospects coming to the UFC. So I'm excited for this fight, man. I'm like a little bit of a believer in Cam Rowston over here, but I think I'm gonna have to go with Andre Petroski. Like I said, Cam hasn't been tested to the level of a guy like Andre Petroski, and Andre's had some good experience in the UFC, and while I was a little bit worried about his last performance and perhaps overrating him a little bit, and he doesn't really take risks in the octagon anymore, maybe he'll come in with a solid game plan. He's going to probably prepare the best that he possibly can, and the game plan probably will be to grapple against Cam Rowston, and he's a pretty strong guy, so I'm going to pick Andre Petroski in this matchup, although it is a low-confidence pick. We'll have to see how Cam's grappling shows up, okay? Andre Petroski is sitting at the average odds of -148, and again, like we were talking about the last fight, I think that makes sense personally. I think it's a good fight. I think it's a fun matchup. The UFC has been doing a really, really good job with, their matchmaking recently. But now, guys, let's move over to the heavyweight division. We got a few heavyweight fights tonight, which I'm a little bit excited to talk about, guys. We have Louie Sutherland taking on Justin Tafa. Yes, the Tafa brothers are on this card, and a lot of people have been not so looking forward to it, okay? But let's talk about Louie Sutherland first. He is a really, really big heavyweight with a ton of muscle mass, unlike you typically see in the UFC nowadays at heavyweight. He wants to come forward. He wants to finish his opponents. He has pretty big shots, and he is a fairly well-rounded fighter. And I will say, although it's against unproven talent, like, that's important to note of that well-roundedness, like, he more so wills his ways into position that he wants to get instead of using actual technique. Sometimes, though, it's important to note, he does show technique when he's out there, but he mostly just kind of, like, drives his entire body at you to hit you or to take you down. And so far in his career, that's been pretty effective. It's just, like, he's a little bit of a strange one because he'll just, like, throw a wild combination of, like, hooks or something just to hurt you. Then a proper nice leg kick or a head kick will come up and just get thrown in there out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So something that he also does very well is he finishes you when his opponent is underneath him. You do not want to be going up against this guy's ground and pound because he's huge, and he will, like, start throwing vicious elbows and looking to damage you and finish you, okay? Now, the only issue with Louie Sutherland is that he's fought against very unproven talent for the most part, but in the heavyweight division, does that really matter? I don't know. It definitely doesn't matter nearly as much as it would in some other divisions. He's in his prime. He's 31 years old, almost 32. He's been looking good, and he seems to be one of those guys who actually might be able to come in and shed a little bit of light on a weak division over here, and the UFC is certainly taking care of him opponent-wise over here. Excuse the jump cut over there, guys. Sorry about that. I ended up getting a phone call from my dad. Speaking of weak in the division, though, like I was saying, okay, he's taking on Justin Tafa. Justin Tafa has always been a fighter. It's been easy to break down. He is a huge heavyweight with huge power and a good chin and sometimes good kicks, and he has a major hole in his ground game. He's 7-5 in MMA. He's being insanely inconsistent. He's been underwhelming, and we actually just finally saw him get knocked out against Talishan Texera in his most recent performance, which that might also be one important note with this. After getting knocked out the way he did, you always have to worry about how somebody's chin will recover after, eating the shot like he said. But like I said, there's never really been much else to break down when it comes to a Tafa brother, and we'll have a little bit more on that soon. But actually, with the new weight, there's going to be a little bit more to talk about, okay? Now, guys, I'm going to have to go with Louie Sutherland. I have to. You have a guy who's going to kind of will his way through a fight. he's probably going to want to take Justin Tafa down, and I don't think that Justin Tafa is good enough to really even compete in the UFC. But like I said, we still have questions about Louie Sutherland. He's unproven himself, but I don't care. I'm going to pick him against Justin Tafa. I can't pick a Tafa brother. Like, there's a saying now to always fade a Tafa, bro. I think that's a fair take. You can't fight with the hole in the ground game, but the problem is when you have a fighter in the heavyweight division with the power that he has, he can always land and always can get a KO. So be careful if you're betting, man, but I'm going to go with Louie Sutherland in this prediction over here. Let's take a look at what the odds over here. Louie Sutherland is a underdog over here. Justin Tafa being the favorite. Dude, any Tafa being a favorite is just something that I personally do not understand. Is there something that I'm not seeing? I don't know. He's 7-5. I'm good. I'm good. So that's definitely an underdog opportunity in Louie Sutherland, guys. Now, guys, when we talk about this next fight, we have a little bit of an issue because I always, as you know, like I always want to look to just be honest with you on this channel, okay? It's important to note that when it comes to actually both of these fighters, I wasn't familiar with either of them. And I actually, for the channel, I did a little bit of tape study, which I rarely do on this channel. Now, like I said, I always want to be honest with you on this channel, and I will always be one to admit when there's a fighter on here, or there's any fighter fighting that I'm not familiar with, because someone, like, while typically I am knowledgeable about, like, a lot of prospects coming into the UFC, I do feel I have a little bit of a responsibility to be open about this type of thing, because I am somebody who has a YouTube channel giving betting advice to viewers. So keep in mind, if you happen to value my opinion and what I have to say, I've only watched these two fighters a little bit, okay? I always want to be honest with you guys, and I'm vastly familiar with a lot of fighters, even outside the organization. It's just these two I happen to not be familiar with, okay? Now, we'll start with Brando Pericic, and apologies if I'm mispronouncing it, but he's a well-rounded fighter. He excels when he seems to be opposing as well on his opponents. If he can get his opponents backing up, he is pretty good with his flurries. He has some pretty good clinch work. Now, the only other thing to note about Brando is that sometimes he can be swinging too wild, and he has been open for, like, left open for big counters in the past. Now, I'm going to end up saying the same thing about Ellison over here, but he's fought absolutely nobody so far, and he is clearly unproven at this point in his career. I actually don't know. I mean, I guess it's good matchmaking from the UFC, right? But we also have Elisha Ellison, who is an actual in-shape heavyweight and a well-rounded fighter with massive power on his hands and a variety of attacks both on the feet and on the ground. And before we continue, I forgot to note that Brando's like in okay shape. But anyways, Elisha seems to be very strong and able to kind of like bully people in the octagon. So far, too, he has shown some pretty good fight IQ. But again, like I just mentioned, his talent level, the talent level that he's faced and the competition level is just non-existent. So we have only really a little bit to point to there. But from what I've seen, and again, it's important to note, like this is going to be a very low confidence pick. I gotta go with Snack Panther to get the job done. From what we've seen, he's been far more dominant. He's been far more scary. He is a big in-shape heavyweight, which is important to note for the UFC. I've just been a little bit more impressed from what I've seen, but again, the competition level, it's just not there. So, and it's not going to help because both of these guys are unproven, right? So we'll need to see another fight post this fight to see if these guys end up actually being anything in the UFC. But I'm going to go with Elisha Ellison to get the win over here. But again, very important to note, it's a very low confidence pick, and he's sitting at about a pick'em. I guess that makes sense. I don't imagine a lot of people have been following these two fighters. I don't even know like why the UFC picked them both up if they need another fight, but regardless, hey, hopefully they can make a good career for themselves. My pick again is going to be Elisha Ellison. Now, you know how I was saying earlier the UFC had some pretty good matchups on this card? That continues on with Jamie Mullarkey and Rolando Bedoya, two fighters in the division that need a win in the UFC, and I'm excited to talk about this fight. I'm excited to watch this fight, but it's going to hurt because I don't want to see either guy get cut, and we risk that here. We'll talk a little bit about it, okay? Jamie Mullarkey is a well-rounded fighter. He's one of those guys that's just, he's not great anywhere, but he is pretty good everywhere. He's like one of those guys, like I said, he's not too deep to break down. He's just been, unfortunately, struggling as of late because he is now 17-8 in his MMA career and losing more often than he's won. But to be fair for Jamie Mullarkey, he has been put through the ringer of contenders since joining the UFC. Literally, his last 3 losses came from Muhammad Naimov, Nasrat Haqparast, and I don't want to hear this next one being a fraud because all of a sudden people are just completely off the train, and I'm recording this prior to Gene Silva's fight, okay? But he also lost to Mauricio Rufy, okay? All of those fighters are extremely underrated and incredible fighters. The only issue is that, unfortunately, Jamie never really put up too much of a fight, with the exception being against Muhammad Naimov. So, Jamie's a little bit stuck here, man, and it's unfortunate because he is finding himself in a must-win scenario because with him not being a draw in the UFC, I worry that another loss on Jamie's record could end up with him, you know, getting the big old cut from the UFC. And that'd be a shame because he does have good skills in that octagon. He just hasn't been able to put it together. And like I said, he's been put like through the ringer of really, really good opponents. But anyways, we'll talk a little bit more about the same because we're continuing on to Rolando Bedoya also. Rolando Bedoya, he is a fun, creative striker with really good movement. He has good volumes. He has good combinations. He also has a pretty good jab and can be pretty effective with his leg kicks on the feet. Now, like I said earlier, this is good matchmaking at by the UFC because he's also been on a losing streak like Jamie, being completely winless in the UFC so far. The problem is, unlike we were just talking about with Jamie, he doesn't have the same excuse of facing great talent. He's fought some good fighters, but he has also fought beatable fighters. Jamie was put through a house of animals, okay? But even in his last fight against Jai Herbert that he took on, he did put on a good striking display. He hasn't been getting dominated for the most part, but he's also finding himself in a win-win situation here. And while this is sad because, like I said, I don't want to risk like either guy having their careers possibly being cut. It is a very good matchup at the same time by the UFC. I just want I just want to hope for the best for both of these guys, man. And this one's a real tough fight. And sorry, I just used my wrong OBS scene over there. There we go. This is a real tough fight to break down because, again, both guys are a little bit in similar states. They're both in their primes. They have like fairly similar stats. This fight, in my opinion, is a pick'em. I think this is a 50-50, but I'm going to have to go with Jamie Mullarkey. I think the skill set is just a little bit better, but again, that one's going to be a low confidence pick for me. Let's take a look at what the odds are. There you go. There you go. I like to get an authentic reaction to these things, guys. I don't look at the odds beforehand. So I think it makes sense, man. I don't think it's a fight you should be betting on. Not even a round line. I don't like any of that. But Jamie Mullarkey is going to be my pick with a gun to my head. And unfortunately, guys, I have to, next time you'll see me in the next clip, I'll have a change of clothes probably because I have a camera on. I'm home alone right now with the baby. The baby woke up from a nap, but she did just put her head down. I might be able to get away with another recording, but we'll see. I'm going to have a change of clothes soon. But guys, as we continue on up the card over here, we have Luana Carolina taking on UFC newcomer Michelle Montague, the Wild One. A lot of people might be looking forward to this. I'm personally kind of looking forward to this and seeing what Michelle Montague can do in the UFC, but we'll break her down, but we'll break down Luana Carolina first with this matchup, okay? Luana Carolina is a decent striker who kind of does an okay job keeping fights on the feet. On the ground, she's not horrible, but again, does prefer to stand up and keep things busy on the feet. Luana has kind of just been like coasting through her UFC career so far. She's won some, she's lost some, and she's fought nobody of significance. But to be honest, like even in the performances where she does win her fights, nothing really happens in her bouts. She's just kind of like one of those fighters that exists in the UFC. Nobody remembers, nobody cares about her fights. It's a little bit unfortunate, but what can you do, right? But unlike Luana Carolina, though, we have Michelle Montague. Michelle Montague is a very interesting prospect. She is a Bellator and PFL fighter coming into the UFC as a grappler with a particular skill set being a rear naked choke. So far in her career, she has finished every single one of her fights by rear naked choke. And guys, come on. That's something that I have to cheer for. Do you remember how when Ronda Rousey was like armbarring every single opponent, how like she just had the entire world watching, wondering when it was going to happen again? Like, I'm not sure, honestly, and I probably should have looked into this. I'm not sure if like the goal Michelle has to finish her fights this way or if it just like happens because she's good at it, but this would be super cool to see. I love when fighters have a particular skill set that nobody's able to stop. It's why like I loved watching like Khabib Nurmagomedov so much. I always found it just so fascinating that nobody could stop the way that he just took people down and constantly mauled them. I just think it's cool. I think it's cool. I like watching greatness. So if Michelle comes in and gets another rear naked, it would definitely bring a new light to this division. And that division desperately needs that. The only other thing that we have to note about Michelle Montague is that she has been fighting at featherweight, which I didn't know until like I brought up Tapology over here, and she's going to have to make a cut here. I'm not sure if she has a history doing that or anything along those lines or even testing weight cuts. Not a clue, but it's something to note if you're a betting man. We could possibly see a weaker version of Michelle Montague in the octagon come fight night, whether that's cardio, chin, whatever it might be, just weaker in general. Now, usually I would also mention her quality level of opponents, which is poor, but I kind of don't think it matters. Luana Carolina isn't exactly a fighter that you should be worried about, even with her UFC experience so far. Like I said, she's been somebody that's been kind of coasting, and I just don't see any danger coming in. Let's just kind of like taking on the same level of opponents over here, okay? But I don't know. You know what? Sometimes in these videos, guys, like, I'm like, dude, I did such a good job breaking these fighters down. And then when it comes, like, when it's time to make a prediction, I'm like, dude, this could go either way. I'm going to pick Michelle Montague. Elisha can come in. Elisha can finish fights. She's in her prime. I know Luana Caroline is too, but nothing Luana has ever done has impressed me. At least with Michelle Montague, I'm like, okay, you got to worry about a rear naked choke. So I am going to go pick Michelle Montague, the wild one, to get the job done. Let's see what the odds jam has over here. Michelle Montague sitting at a minus 188 favorite. That's fair, but again, I don't think we should be betting on this one, especially, I mean, assuming that she hasn't done the cut before. I'm just not familiar if she's done the cut or not. It's just, she's got to prove, kind of like we saw with Kayla Harrison, that you can make a weight like this, but she's also not nearly as big as Kayla Harrison. Just to get my point, every time something like that happens, there's a weight change or something along those lines, I worry about it as somebody who likes to bet. But again, my pick is going to be Michelle Montague to get the job done. And guys, let's continue on up the card over to the next fight over here. We have Colby Thickness taking on Josias Musasa. And this is another very, very interesting matchup by the UFC, man. I'm excited to talk about these two. I'm excited to break it down. I'm excited to watch the fight. We'll start with Colby Thickness over here. Colby Thickness is a product of Alexander Volkanovski, being a training partner of Alexander Volkanovski. And he is coming into the UFC as a well-rounded fighter who is like kind of decent everywhere. He can finish the fight both on the feet and on the ground, and he's a weird guy because if you watch him move and if you watch him strike, he doesn't really look all of that great, but sometimes he just finds the right shot. Sometimes he just like finds the right submission too. Like he's very capable of getting the job done. And I mean, he is coming off his first loss in the UFC debut against Alexandre Topuria, and if you don't know, that's a brother of Elliott Topuria, where, to be fair, he did take that fight on short notice, it's important to note, and he did a good job competing with Topuria, and he did have moments in that bout. He just lost most exchanges and was kind of out-grappled in that fight. Now, I personally still have questions about Alexandre, and that, like, so far was really the only test that Colby's had, so I don't quite know what to think of that performance in the grand scheme of things yet, but either way, he's still a young guy, 26 years old, he's training with great guys, and not even his prime yet, so hopefully he can bounce back with a win here, because I always personally like to cheer for the guys over with Alexander Volkanovski. Volk is one of my favorite fighters personally, but he's taking on Josias Musasa. Josias Musasa, on the other hand, he is a wild striker with great hands and very sneaky knees. He has good cardio, he has good heart, and he's pretty durable in general. He's one of those fighters that usually gets better as the fight goes on, and he has seemed to be improving in most fights that we see him, with an issue that we'll get to in just a second, okay? Other than that, he does have a little bit of groundwork. Like, if he ends up there, he does show nice scrambles in the octagon. Now, after coming into the UFC, after the Contender Series, a ton of people were hyped up on this guy, and he just suffered his first loss in his UFC debut. Just like Colby, but against Carlos Ferreira this time. That's why it's good matchmaking. Now, unfortunately for Musasa, it just wasn't a good look. He did a lot of missing, and then got head kicked and choked out, but I hate to be that guy, guys, but I think it might have been a little bit of a fraud check. And I'm not somebody who throws fraud check around like most MMA fans constantly do every single time one fighter takes a singular loss. I just didn't get a good feeling watching that. But hey, you know what? Maybe he can come around. Injuries are always a thing. UFC jitters are always something that people like to talk about. He's still young, just like Colby is. And that's why, guys, I really, really do like this matchup. I absolutely love it, okay? The UFC in general, like I mentioned, they've just been doing such a good job with the matchmaking lately. Two good-looking prospects in their UFC debut. They came in, they lost their UFC debut. I like this fight a lot because both fighters, too, are in like a I want to prove myself type situation. You know what I mean? It's going to be a pretty fun fight. So I'm going to have to... Again, it's another really little bit of a close fight over here, but I'm going to have to pick Josias Musasa because prior to the loss that he's had, he has looked pretty good. And I still really can't gauge how good Colby Thickness is. But again, it's another low confidence pick for me. I'm going to pick the KO Wizard to get the job done over here. Now let's take a look at what odds jam. Oh no, my mouse. Oh, never mind. We're good. I thought my mouse died for a second. Oh, we don't have any odds on odds jam for this fight. Maybe it's a newly placed matchup. Could be. Oh, sorry about that, guys. I think we have odds for every single other fight on this card. All right, guys, let's continue on up the card over here to Najavo. I always forget how I'm supposed to pronounce that name. I'm sorry about that. But anyways, he's taken on Rodolfo Bellato. This is an excellent matchup. One of the most underrated fights in the card. Let's break it down. So we'll start off with Navajo Sterling over here. Navajo Sterling is a kickboxing world champion training as city kickboxing like we've seen with a lot of fighters on this card. He is a powerful technical striker with good combinations, accuracy, and decent counters. Now, his ground game is still relatively unknown, but he does seem to be just a decent contender in general. And While he also does have, like I said, he has nice combinations, he can get caught during those combinations. He's open to shots, like specifically like Adesanya kind of got on Alex Pereira. He's 7-0 in MMA. We've seen him a couple times in the octagon now, and I think that he has proven so far that he belongs in the octagon. He's been striking pretty well, he's been putting on some good paces, and he showed that his power can hold up for 3 rounds in his performances. He never ended up being like one of those first-round warriors that you see coming to the UFC getting fraud checked. He's just entering his prime now, and I can't wait to see what he does. He showed up, he's had some good performances, and I've been relatively impressed with what I've seen from Navajo Sterling now. But anyways, now, I'm not sure how you guys feel about this, okay? Because I see mixed opinions on this other guy that we're about to talk about, but I do feel like that Navajo Sterling is taking a big step up in competition against Rodolfo Bellato here. So, Rodolfo Bellato, he is a grappler with really big power. His game plan is to walk forward, throw bombs, and take opponents down. He has decent takedowns, he has good submissions, and he does have good control on top of that ground game that he presents. Now, with Rodolfo Bellato, he can be sucked into a brawl, and sometimes that works out for him because he has an insane chin and really, really good heart. This dude's durability, guys, is off the charts. It's ridiculous. So, now, he's also had a rough few performances, though, okay? Prior to him looking really good, but, like, besides, it starts off with Ihor Potieria, where the ref won him the fight because he was losing the fight, and the fight should have been stopped, but because of this dude's insane heart, somehow, he got up and he ended up finishing that fight. Like, honestly, kind of made him look like a warrior, but I will say he should have lost that fight, okay? The fight against Cruz was absolutely not a draw. He lost that fight big time. He got beat up the entire time, just getting by on his heart again. And recently, of course, against Paul Craig, he pulled an Aljamain Sterling and he tried to get a win that way, but I was about to say unfortunately, but fortunately didn't. So he hasn't really had the chance to put on any clean performances as of lately, but man, what we've learned is this dude is durable and this guy absolutely has heart in the octagon. That's really the only thing we've seen from him lately. And a guy like Bellato that just doesn't go away no matter what you do to him is a very, very scary fighter to go up against. And I'm considering that a lot, actually, when we talk about this matchup, because you have Navajo Sterling, who looks like he could be like a really good striker. He can keep up the power. But the way that I'm envisioning this fight going is Navajo Sterling like being the better technical fighter. Plus, you have to admit, or you have to remember, like we were just talking about, his grappling still is relatively unproven. So there is a path to victory when it comes to Rodolfo Bellato. Excuse me, guys, my tracking got turned off. There is a path to victory in Rodolfo Bellato in that case. But I can also see if this fight remains on the feet, and let's say Rodolfo Bellato doesn't even go for any takedowns, I could see Sterling like cranking him with shot after shot after shot, and Bellato just doesn't go away. He just doesn't go away. He just survives. He takes whatever it is, and then he just imposes his will on Navajo Sterling. That's the most likely scenario I believe is going to happen in the octagon, because again, what we've seen from Bellato is he can't put the guy away. And Navajo Sterling, he's not like this insane guy who's going to be in some sort of flow state against Rodolfo Bellato. He's a good fighter. I just don't think that he is... when I look at this matchup, I can just see Bellato taking everything that Sterling dishes out and dishing the fight right back to him. Now, what happens to Navajo Sterling when he ends up having that war brought to him? And what happens when he has a grappler like Rodolfo Bellato testing him? I still have those questions, so for this fight, I'm going to go with Rodolfo Bellato. I'm more so like on a little bit of a gut feeling with how this fight's going to go. Navajo Sterling is also a very promising prospect, so it's going to be a fun fight to watch regardless. Let's take a look at what the odds Jim has to say over here. I'm picking another underdog. I've been picking quite a few underdogs this card, haven't I? Rodolfo Bellato is absolutely an underdog opportunity, in my opinion. I'm going to pick him to win. I'm going to pick him to get the job done here. And now, guys, let's continue on over to the featured prelim fight over here. We have Loma Lukebumi taking on Alexia Thayanara, who's returning to the UFC after, like, kind of coming in and shocking the world, but we'll talk about that, okay? We'll talk about Loma Lukebumi. Loma Lukebumi is a Muay Thai striker with decent power for the division. She has pretty good volume and has wrestling inside of her back pocket, in her back pocket. You get my point. She's very small and doesn't, in my opinion, she's never really as good as people say she is. Now, people have been hyping this girl up through the roof like she's going to be the next Weili Zhang, absolutely coming in here and just dominating the entire division. In saying that, though, okay, she's been picking up some wins against decent competition, I will say, but her fights are also kind of bland. Like, I don't know, man, she can win fights, but she just, nothing she's done has impressed me in the octagon so far. And I know that people are like starting to get off the train a little bit, but people were talking like she's going to be the next big thing, okay? Alexia Thayanara, on the other hand, she's one of those WMMA fighters that actually goes in there in the octagon with the intention on winning fights. She has good pressure, she has good cardio, she has decent timing with her takedowns if she wants to go for them. The only issue that we've seen so far with Alexa Thayanara is that she has an awful spin kick that she just likes to throw out there for some reason, okay? And those spins, man, they can get you into trouble if you're fighting someone capable. I don't understand why people who can't do it continue to do it, okay? I always think about Chris Weidman having a complete career just trajectory taken off against Luke Rockhold, okay? I'm just saying, if she keeps that up, one day it'll catch up to her. Now, after having a decent performance over on the Contender Series, she ended up coming into the UFC and actually shocking the world against Molly McCant, where she came into that fight on short notice and she just came in and absolutely dominated Molly. She took her down, she had her way with her, and she ended up finding a submission. And honestly, guys, I really hope she gets the job done here. I really hope she gets the job done because she's one of those fighters that could shed some new light in the division like we've been talking about with heavyweight earlier. How often do you see fighters in this division come in and actually, really want to beat up their opponents? It's refreshing for this division. It's refreshing for WMMA. And when I look at this fight, guys, I am kind of taking that same attitude I was with, I've been going with some WMMA fights lately, is that you have a fighter who comes in and you have a fighter who actually wants to fight and wants to win and wants to beat up their opponents, as opposed to coming in, a little bit of technique here, getting by, winning fights. I'm picking Alexia Thayanara. She actually comes in and she wants to fight, so why not pick her? And gut feeling, pretty confident in saying so. I like her. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch this fight. Alexia Thayanara, I think she's pretty promising for the division. I'm going to pick her to get the job done. I don't know if it's going to be an unpopular opinion. Okay. I was about to say, if I ended up picking another underdog here, that would be insane. But I think this could go either really good or really bad for me, guys. But hey, I think I did a good job breaking down the fights. I think I had some decent reads on these fights. So Alexia Thayanara, of course, set at the average odds of -203, as you've seen on screen right here. I think she's going to win the fight, and I'm actually fairly confident in saying so. Now, guys, of course, I have been talking a lot about betting on this channel. If you are looking to either support the channel or you'd like to see exactly where I'm putting my money where my mouth is, then you can check out the channel membership, which is very cheap compared to other channels, in the pinned comment description down below or right next to the subscribe button if you are on the web. I actually don't recall where it is on the phone, but you get my point, okay? You can sign up for the channel membership every single Friday or Saturday morning, depending on whether or not I would like to be betting on any Friday fights. I'll be uploading a community members video along with a members only post showing exactly what I am doing with my money, what bets I'm going to be placing, and in the members only video, I'm going to explain what I'm going to be doing. So again, if you want to combine my fight knowledge with your own research or just flat out support the channel, then you can check out the channel membership, which again is very cheap compared to other channels. Additionally, we also use a tool over here that we've been using, OddsJam. It's fantastic if you have multiple sports books. OddsJam is a partner of the channel. If you want to sign up, you can use my link in the pinned comment description down below. Code Clenbat, you can get a discount signing up. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Let's continue on to the main card. And guys, I actually think this main card's pretty good, and we're kicking off things over the main card over here with Tom Nolan taking on Charlie Campbell. I think it's, again, decent matchmaking for the UFC over here, and I'm excited to watch this fight. Let's break down Tom Nolan first, okay? Tom Nolan is a tall, heavy pressure striker for the division. He is very accurate and technical, but he will say he can be hit. His dude's chin is up in the air, and he can be taken down. He has great calf kicks. He isn't afraid to get creative. He also has good cardio, and he talks about having high-level grappling, but we haven't really seen it within the octagon. He's certainly capable, and he has some good entries on takedowns for somebody his size, to be honest with you. So after, actually, another thing, after losing to Nicholas Mata, and he ended up getting put away when he came into the UFC, he bounced back with the fraud check allegations and beat those, winning 3 fights in a row since then, where he's had some okay performances. He just proved that, in my opinion, Tom Nolan is a fraud. Tom Nolan doesn't suck, okay? His last fight against Vyacheslav Borshev, it could have gone either way, but this is the fight where I really do believe that he kind of just, proved that he does belong in the UFC. We saw him perform in the octagon in that fight everywhere, using every tool in his arsenal, and he proved that he can go 3 hard rounds in the UFC with a decent opponent who's been in there for a while. He has potential, but I'm going to be honest, guys, I'm kind of on the MMA community this one and not exactly being too hyped up for Tom Nolan, though. Anyways, he's taking on Charlie Campbell, and Charlie Campbell is a Longo MMA fighter, and he's a pretty simple fighter to break down. He's a striker with great power and nice crispy shots when he's on the offense, but he can be tagged a lot of it while he's on the offense, okay? Now, for Charlie Campbell, we have seen him twice in the octagon now, and he's looked really good in one fight, beating Alex Reyes, which doesn't say too much, but then he didn't look so great against Trevor Peek. Now, he outworked Peek in a very underwhelming performance, but hey, he's been winning, so let's see what he can do in the octagon against Tom Nolan. I just think, again, this is the UFC having really, really good matchmaking, because there's a few fights over here where it's you know what, I could see this one going this way, I could see this one going the other way, and for this fight, I think Tom Nolan's going to continue the train. I don't see Charlie Campa, like, yeah, I know that he does have heavy hands. I know. But I think it's going to take somebody a little bit better than Charlie Campbell to stop Tom Nolan in the, you know, I don't want to say resurgence, just like the resurgence after that first loss that he's had. Tom Nolan he's definitely been more active, right? How long is it Charlie Campbell? Yeah, Charlie Campbell has been active at all. Wow, I didn't know it was that long since we've seen him in the octagon. Holy. I'm going to go with Tom Nolan. I don't know why he was off. You have to worry too. I don't know anything if he's had injuries or why he's been off, whatever that is. I'm going to pick Tom Nolan in this bout, and unfortunately, at the time of recording this video, we do not have any odds for this fight either, but I'm almost sure every other fight on this card does have odds, okay? But Tom Nolan, again, is going to be my pick for this fight. All right, guys, let's continue on, though. A fight that I am very, very excited for. I've oftentimes described myself as Neil Magny's only big fan over here. I'm excited to watch Jake Matthews taking on Neil Magny, guys. I like both of these guys. Let's break them down. We've broken down these guys quite a bit on the channel, okay? Jake Matthews, he's one of those decent all-round fighters who exactly doesn't really shine anywhere, but he can fight in all spots in the octagon. Now, apparently with Jake Matthews, there's a lot of work he's been putting into his mentality, and it's supposedly working for him so far because he's been on a really, really nice 3-fight win streak. Now, usually, okay, here's the thing. We as MMA fans are always hyped up when Jake wins, okay? Talking about the run that he's about to go on, just for him to lose again, and then everyone to, talk about Jake Matthews and like send him back to the gatekeeper name. But man, the dude's been putting it together lately, man. He had a really good scrap with Phil Rowe. He had a decent fight against Francisco Prado, beating him like just, it was one of those fights. It was like okay performance. He beat him to the punch most of the time. And now he's coming off the performance where he beat Chidi Njokuani, where he looked much better. He looked really, really good in that fight. Like he ended up like as the fight came, he ate a few really crisp kicks. He pressured. He got a really nice foot sweep and locked up an insanely good rear naked choke. Now, we're at the point, like I was talking about, where everyone is back on the Jake Matthews train. And honestly, guys, if Jake Matthews wasn't fighting literally one of my favorite fighters, I'd be sitting in this spot and I'd be cheering for him. But I'm a big Neil Magny enjoyer, guys. I'm a big Neil Magny enjoyer, so I'm hoping for the win streak to come to a halt. But Jake Matthews, he's still in his prime, and it would be nice to see, like, finally have him go get a good run at the title. That's why I was saying, like, it's one of those fights where I don't want either guy to lose, because how cool would that be to see Jake Matthews go for a title run, man? I'd love to see that. Anyways, but he's taking on Neil Magny. Like I mentioned, Neil Magny is one of my favorite fighters. Neil Magny is a well-rounded and very experienced fighter. He excels when he is able to slow down the pace of fights and controlling his opponents using his clinch game or his wrestling. Now, here's the thing with Neil Magny. We have a little bit to talk about, okay? His age has been starting to show, and he's been offering less and less resistance to calf kicks specifically, but this is weird to talk about now because he just shocked the world about a month ago beating Elijah Zaleski, and I need to talk about this performance for a second because in this fight, he looked so much better in this fight, okay? Like, better than the dudes looked in years. Now, I would need to go back and look at the fight. I haven't rewatched it, and I should, but I'm probably not going to, but he kind of looked like he was in better shape. He was fast, he was aggressive, mixing things up, and he had a very tough back and forth fight while it lasted. Now, he ended up in that fight hurting Elijah in the second round, smelling blood, going for a finish, and ended up getting that finish. He looked very improved in this fight, and now this is where it's weird because it makes me wonder if it was the competition level that he's been facing, and that's why he's looked bad recently. I will also note, though, he still won't check any calf kicks for some reason, so we got to watch out for that one, but he looked so good. And before that, I was talking about, and if you've been following the channel, you might have heard this, I was talking about Neil being completely done in the UFC. And it's like, it's safe to say because, again, Neil's one of like my favorite fighters, but I thought like he really couldn't hang in the UFC anymore. Like he barely won against Mike Malott. He got destroyed both by Michael Morales and Carlos Prates. Maybe it really was that competition level he was facing because both those guys are top contenders. Either way, like, it's just cool to see, and as much as I would like to say, like I mentioned, I would like to see Jake Matthews go on a run for that belt, I'm not cheering against Neil Magny, man. I've always liked the dude. I would love to see him pick up another win at 38 years old, and I'm sorry, guys, I don't recall if I've mentioned it with all the Neil Magny glaze over here, but while Neil did look good, he is past his prime when we're talking about his fighting ability. It's not like Neil came in and looked like a prime Neil Magny. He just looked like a unwashed Neil Magny, okay? A veteran of the game, someone difficult to deal with, okay? And this is a very, very interesting fight. I think this is one of the more difficult fights to call on the card because if, like, you gotta wonder which version of both guys are gonna show up. Realistically, both guys have been inconsistent. I know that Jake Matthews has been on a win streak here, and I know that he's been putting things together, but we've seen this happen with Jake Matthews before. We've seen everybody high on Jake Matthews again just for him to just have a lackluster performance and end up losing a fight. Neil Magny's also past his prime. which version of both fighters are going to show up. If we get the good version of both of them, which is like both of them in their most recent performances, which I think is the most likely version of them that's going to show up, I got to give a little bit of the edge to Jake Matthews. He has the youth, he has the motivation on his side, and he's what Neil Magny kind of excels when he's slowing things down and he gets to work in the clinch game and the wrestling game. And I believe that Jake Matthews, he's one of those guys that can fight everywhere, and I think that he'd be able to contend with Neil Magny, maybe just like matching his muscle and kind of like, if he's able to take advantage of the calf kicks, like I said, Neil Magny still refuses to check those for some reason. I'd lean towards Jake Matthews, but I think this is one of the more difficult fights on the card to call, and I definitely don't think we should be betting on this fight. Also, Neil Magny's got a ridiculous reach, but Neil's never been really one of those guys to use the reach. It's one of those fights, I don't want to see either guy lose, but I'm going to pick Jake Matthews to get the job done over here. Let's see what the odds are. Jake Matthews is a big favorite. I think it's crazy. With the way that Neil Magny just looked, Neil Magny proved that he's not washed, man. He's not washed. I'm picking Jake Matthews, but I wouldn't be betting on this fight, guys. Absolutely not Jake Matthews at minus 470. That's crazy. But again, I will pick him to win the fight. All right, guys, let's continue on up the card. Again, we have a big main card over here. We have Jack Jenkins taking on Ramon Tavares. I'm not going to lie. I like watching Jack Jenkins fight. I was about to say Jake Matthews again. I like watching actually, I like watching both these guys fight, but I'm not feeling nearly as hyped as it was for some fights on this card. But we'll start with Jack Jenkins. We'll break him down, okay? Jack Jenkins is a well-rounded fighter who excels in his Muay Thai skills. He has great cardio, great leg kicks, heart, takedown defense, and on the feet, he is a pretty good sniper in general. He throws everywhere at his opponents, which is nice to see. He's not just a headhunter. He's also really good at throwing kicks from odd angles, making it pretty difficult for a Muay Thai fighter to prepare for. Now, as of late, Jack Jenkins has been inconsistent, but he's coming off of a good performance right now against Gabriel Santos, where he did lose, but it was a really great back and forth fight. He unfortunately ended up getting clubbed and subbed there, so I'm hoping that Jake Matthews, why do I keep saying that? I'm sorry, guys. Sorry about that. We were just talking about Jake Matthews. I'm hoping Jack Jenkins could come back, bounce back with a win over here, back in the win column, okay? But he's taking on Ramon Tavares, and Ramon Tavares is an aggressive striker. He has good power in his shots. He has good cardio. He sets a nice pace in that octagon, and he has good grappling if he needs to use his grappling. He has also great lateral movement with pretty good shot placement with that movement. He has really nice technique in general, and he has a lot of heart. His only weakness is that he's susceptible to leg kicks, okay? Now, after two really, really fun performances and wins, he just took a defeat against Davey Grant where it was still a good fight. It was a technical scrap. He was just a small step behind, which I don't blame. Like, Davey Grant can beat people, okay? He's been looking good, but he could be doing better, and hopefully Ramon Tavares is still improving because he's going to be exiting his prime very soon. He's going to need to put things together a little bit. Now, you have two really, really tough guys in this fight, but I can't ignore the fact that, like I said, Jack Jenkins is a guy that can throw those calf kicks, and Ramon Tavares has an issue dealing with those. I could absolutely see Jack Jenkins taking advantage of that, and I think that Jack Jenkins will be beating Ramon to the punch more often than Ramon Tavares will be able to oppose his will on Jack Jenkins. I could see this being a tough fight. I could see this being a fun fight. I could see this being a scrappy fight, but I think Jack Jenkins is just going to be a little bit better, and he's going to kind of coast his way over to decision. So Jack Jenkins is going to be my pick over here. I'm like moderately confident in saying so. Let's take a look. Jack Jenkins is sitting at the average odds of a minus 305 favorite. So I guess I'm with the odds makers on this one. Jack Jenkins, hopefully he gets the job done too. I like watching Jack Jenkins. I like watching both guys, but I'm going to be rooting for Jack Jenkins in this one. All right, guys, continuing up the card over here, and I got to admit, I'm actually really looking forward to the prelims compared to the main card over here. Like, this is a fun fight. This is a good fight, but there's some prelim fights that I'm looking like way more forward to than this main card. Anyways, this time we have Jimmy the Brute Crute taking on Ivan Ersland. Let's break these fighters down, okay? We'll start with Jimmy Crute over here. Jimmy Crute is a good wrestler and grappler with decent power on the feet, but not exactly a ton of technique. He has in good volume, he has good pressure, and he has insanely good ground and pound at times. When he's on top of you, this dude could have some vicious elbows. Now, he should be on a 2-fight win streak here because, as we spoke about earlier, he was absolutely robbed against Bellato, and he had a really good performance there. Then, in his most recent bout, he beat Marcin Prachnio, where he ended up getting a takedown, and he just patiently worked for an armbar. He looked good. Now, I've personally always thought that Jimmy Crute was a little bit underrated as a fighter, and it's good to see him a little bit more active again. He's been taking on some fun fights, he's been having some good performances, and I always forget that the dude's in his prime. It's just like, I don't know, I look at him and I expect him to be like 36 or something, but he's still in his prime, he's having some good performances, it's nice to see him active. But on the other hand, he's taking on Ivan Ersland. Now, Ivan Ersland is a striker with really good power, and aggression along with pretty solid counters. He does have good ground defense and underrated PJJ, but he does prefer to keep things on the feet. Now, unfortunately, Ivan Ellison does have a little bit of a weakness, and that being he can fade a little bit in fights. Now, we've also seen him twice in the UFC, and honestly, not exactly a ton to note there. He's had some pretty disappointing outings, unfortunately, remaining winless in the UFC so far. He's looking to bounce back in the win column over here against a really tough opponent in Jimmy Crute. And I gotta say, guys, this is another one where I can actually see the path to victory for Jimmy Crute. I just think he's gonna get the wrestling game going. I think, like, even as the fight goes on, like, Ivan Ellison is one of those fighters that I did mention he can fade in fights. And Jimmy Crute's one of those guys that could take advantage of that. So I can see Jimmy Crute really putting on the pace here, whether it's the striking. He's probably going to mix in the grappling too. I think he's going to be imposing as well in Ivan Ellison, and I think that Ivan Ellison is going to crumble to it a little bit. So Jimmy Crute is going to be my pick for this fight. And again, I'm moderately confident in saying so. We can see Jimmy Crute sitting at a minus 242 favorite. So I'm not going crazy over here. I'm not picking a good bunch of underdogs like I was earlier. Jimmy Crute is getting my pick to win. I see a clear path to victory for this one. Now, guys, before we talk about the co-main event, I do want to stop you for just one more second over here. As you might know, I am your guy with too many YouTube channels. Go check out the link tree at the top of the description or the direct links within the description down below. We upload commentary videos every day on multiple niches throughout YouTube. We have multiple channels, so if you happen to enjoy me, you happen to enjoy my commentary, check it out. I want to be your background guy, the guy who just, like, you have playing a video if you're, like, washing dishes or just doing something. That's my goal for YouTube over here. So if you're interested in any other topic, we have ever-expanding channels. You can check it out in the link tree at the top of the description again, or the direct links with the description down below. Additionally, follow us over on X. We like to make community videos, and I would love to have you guys be part of that. Thank you so much for listening. It's been nice to see the bleed over. I appreciate you guys who have been checking out some other channels. I've been recognizing some names. Let's get into the co-main event. Thanks for listening. All right, guys, you know you got a banger of a co-main event or a banger of a main event when we talk about a Tafa brother being there, okay? We have a very interesting co-main event, I will say, in Junior Tafa taking on Ibo Aslan. It's all right. Let's break these two fighters down. Okay, we'll start with Junior Tafa. Now, Junior Tafa, like the Tafa brothers, are pretty simple to break down. He's a decent kickboxer with good but overrated power behind his hands. Like we just about spoke about Justin, he does have a hole in his ground game, but he also, in the octagon, which I hate about Junior, he taunts when he shouldn't, okay? Another thing about him is he recently moved to 205, and he does look much better at that weight. He's not in perfect shape, but I will say he's much better. And he also notably moves quicker. Now, he did have his first 205 performance against Tuco Tokos where he did look good at the weight, but his ground game still got exposed. Like, he did okay on the feet, or I would say he did well on the feet, but he kept getting taken down, and eventually, shocker, got submitted, okay? No matter what he can do with his stand-up, and no matter how good of shape he gets in, and no matter what division he steps in, he needs to fix that ground issue because it is a massive hole in his game. Other than that, though, with Junior Tafa, he's exactly like we spoke about with his brother earlier. He's 6-4 in MMA now. He is hyped up to be this, like, Mark Hunt type of fighter, not being that guy, and he's barely been getting by in the octagon. It's a big thing now to say, hey, we need to fade a Tafa, bro. Always fade a Tafa, bro. Okay? But let's talk about the last auto man, Ibo Aslan. On the other hand, he is a fighter who is known for training with Alexander Rakic, which I believe is still a very, very underrated fighter and good talent to train with. But Ibo himself, he is an aggressive striker with good power. He has good pressure. He has good heart. And he is primarily a boxer, and he can get caught up in brawls. Now, typically when he gets caught up in brawls, he does well when this happens. And he also has a worrying gas tank. But anyways, like, I want to talk about his recent performance, okay? He's coming off of a super weird performance against Billy Elkina where absolutely nothing happened. He fought such a low volume after training in Dagestan. It was like he was a completely different guy in there. And I should have probably mentioned that at the beginning when I was talking about Ibo Aslan, but he has spent some time in Dagestan. And like I said, his performance was awful after going there. But prior to that performance, prior to that training camp in Dagestan, we've all seen it. Ibo's showing up in the octagon looking like a warrior. He switched camps. He looked bad. So I have absolutely no idea what to think about his next performance here and what he'll be showing up against, like, when he comes against Junior here. Like, hopefully we see the Ibo of old, but only time will tell. I have no idea what to think about that. And I don't even know actually if he's, like, because they made such a big deal about it last time. Like, oh, Ibo Aslan, he's spending time in Dagestan. Is he doing that this time around? I have no idea. Not a clue. Don't know where he's training. Don't know how he's going to show up. But regardless, I think I have to pick him against Junior Tafa. Hey, you know what never fails? Always fade a Tafa, bro. I'm going to stick with that, okay? Junior Tafa and Justin Tafa are not good fighters. Ebo Aslan, we've actually seen have good performances. Now, I worry if that same guy shows up, just walking in the octagon like doing nothing for 3 rounds. Maybe Junior Tafa can like light him up with some quick 205 striking, but I'm not counting on it. I think what's more likely to happen is that Ebo Aslan will come in and Ebo Aslan will just overwhelm Junior Tafa. But then again, if this fight remains on the feet, it might open up Junior Tafa a little bit. Junior Tafa is in a must-win situation, so who knows, okay? Weird performance. Certainly not one to bet on because we don't know what Ebo Aslan is going to show up, okay? I'm interested in the odds, but again, I will pick Ebo Aslan to win the fight, but it's a very low confidence pick, okay? Very low confidence. And there you go. The odds are kind of reflecting that, man. Ebo Aslan sitting at the average odds of minus 151. If you're somebody who likes to fade a Tafa, bro, especially when it comes to betting no matter what, these are excellent odds. But again, because of Ebo and the guy that he was in his last performance, I don't think that you should be betting on this fight. And we'll be speaking that a little bit more when the betting guide comes out. But with that, guys, let's break down the main event now. And this is a very, very fun main event, okay? We got Carlos Ulberg taking on Dominick Reyes with his career resurgence. And back in the main event, I'm excited to see this fight, okay? We'll start with Carlos Ulberg. Carlos Ulberg, guys, he's always been a pretty easy guy to break down, okay? He's another city kickboxing fighter on the card, and he is a striker with massive power and good technique. He performs well when he creates some calculated chaos, and in the UFC, he's been winning in the UFC, but honestly, guys, to be honest with you, I always thought the guy was a little bit overrated, okay? And I know people are saying that now a little bit because he had a little bit of a slow-paced fight against Jan Blachowicz, but at 34 years old, almost 35 years old, he's never really shown anything beside his power where it's like, oh, look out for Carlos Ulberg. This guy's going to be the next champion. I always thought that he was going to lose to like top 5 fighters, okay? But somebody I want to talk about, okay? Dominick Reyes. We'll break him down first. Dominick Reyes is a decently well-rounded fighter with great striking. He has good movement. He has good power for the division. He's also very athletic for the division. He's evolving his game a little bit, and he has spoke about being a veteran inside the octagon instead of coming in and looking for war. And he's added some nice elbows, and he's been being more patient in the octagon. Now, after being counted out by the entirety of the MMA fan base and overcoming some health issues outside the octagon, he now finds himself on a 3-fight win streak against Dustin Jacoby, where he put everybody back on notice, getting like a really quick finish in that octagon. Then he got handed a free win against Anthony Smith, and now he's coming off of a win after beating Nikita Krylov, where he got another quick KO. Now, the talent level that he's faced is certainly questionable. I think it's decent, apart from Anthony Smith, who, like I said, is basically a free win, but this fight against Carlos Ulberg here will be the true test to see if Dominick Reyes actually belongs to the top of the division again. If he can get a win here, he can hang with the best. I'm confident in saying that because while it has been wholesome and it has been very exciting to see Dominick Reyes' resurgence in the octagon, I'm personally not convinced yet. I really, really hope he gets the job done though, because like, dude, what a story that would be. After getting robbed from the belt against a fighter who most consider to be literally the greatest fighter of all time and taking all of that damage his next bouts, losing really bad and overcoming those health issues, man, like with all of that he's had, if he could make it back to the belt and even potentially even win that belt, I think, and I will go on record saying that just might make for the single greatest story in MMA history. And for that reason, I'm going to be cheering for Dominick Reyes in every single fight because what happened to him was a travesty in MMA. Like I've spoke about with Johnny Hendricks, who everybody forgets about now, he was robbed of being the guy to dethrone one of the greatest champions in MMA history, and he should have his name in the champions book. He should have a belt to hang at his home. I really, really want to see him win here. I really want to see him get the job done, but the problem is, this, like I said, is still a step up in competition at the end of the day. He hasn't faced a hard hitter like Carlos Ulberg. Is his chin truthfully back? He didn't get tested against Dustin Jacoby. Krylov's not going to hit him that hard, and Anthony Smith is definitely not going to hit him that hard. If we see him eat some good shots against Carlos Ulberg in the first round, then I could be like, okay, all right, we've got something here. Dominick Reyes might be able to actually win the fight because this is a 5-round fight. And if we're talking about Dominick Reyes like in the John Jones era, I'd be comfortable in saying, dude, Dominick Reyes, while he might struggle a little bit early, he's going to take over as the fight goes on. He's going to pound him more. He's going to be able to overwhelm him a little bit. But I can't count on that just yet. I like the momentum that he's been on, but I think I have to go with Carlos Ulberg. I hope I'm wrong. And again, this is a low confidence pick. It's just because I still have questions about Dominick Reyes. At least Carlos Ulberg, I can go, okay, this dude belongs around the top 5 of the division. I still don't know that about Dominick Reyes. I hope he wins. But because I have those questions, I'm going to be picking Carlos Ulberg because this is going to be a very fun striking match. And unfortunately, what I think, if I got a gun to my head right now, then I would say Carlos Ulberg knocks out Dominick Reyes. But anything could happen. It's a very, very fun fight. Dominick Reyes very well could be championship material. We just don't know it yet. Dominick Reyes is sitting at the underdog. Carlos Ulberg is sitting at a minus 171 average odds favorite over here with over 2.5 being at plus money. Yeah, I don't trust that one. I don't trust that one. We're going to be putting money on Dominick Reyes' chin over there. But this is another fight that, in my opinion, you shouldn't be betting on. Unless, like, depending on what a fight doesn't go the distance ends up being. Maybe that. But it's going to be a fun fight. I hope Dominick Reyes wins, but my pick is going to be Carlos Ulberg. Now, guys, if you have not seen it, I recently uploaded a video about the complete guide to fixing MMA where I fix every single little issue about this sport and I take a deep dive into it. You should check that video out right here. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, everybody.